back in Seoul, continuing our coverage of the opening ceremony of the games of the 24th Olympiad from inside the Olympic Stadium. You can see the infield behind me is pretty bare right now. The athletes have made their exit to the applause of the assembled fans, but we've got an awful lot more action ahead, a great deal of pageantry and color for you. Before we get to any of it, though, let's go back outside to our pagoda, our position just outside the Seoul Sports Complex, where Tom Brokaw is standing by. And Tom, I know you've been watching. I alluded to some of the security that's in existence here a little bit earlier. What's your view of it?
Well, I think that there's been a relaxation, Brian, in the last 24 hours or so. I've noticed coming across to get in here today that I was with someone who didn't have a pass of any kind. She was able to go through some restricted areas. And I think what's happened in the last 24 hours or so is that there's been a sufficient amount of consumer complaining going on, so to speak, so that there has been a kind of relaxation of some of the procedures. It's uneven in many instances. And I went out and walked around outside the stadium, and there's very little uniformed police presence. Of course, I would think that there's an enormous contingent here of plainclothesmen and security officers that we can't see as well. But I think that they're feeling pretty good about it right now, and therefore they're backing off just a bit so that people can enjoy the spirit of these games.
I know, Tom, that a lot of people are banking on Pyongyang's relationship with Beijing and Moscow and saying, well, the North won't do anything as long as Beijing and Moscow are here. The nature of that relationship and the independent path that Kim Il-sung has pursued kind of makes it almost irrelevant, does it not?
Well, it does and it doesn't. It wouldn't do him any good, however, to have some kind of an incident in which the Chinese or the Soviets were hurt or, in fact, politically embarrassed, because he relies on them for a good deal of military and for financial support. And he's finding himself more and more isolated, of course, in the world. Today, the North Koreans were saying if there's any trouble at these games, it won't be us. It will be the fault of the United States and South Korea. So they're attempting to put out the word early that if anything happens, they had no part of it. It is a very tricky situation for the North Koreans right now.
The North Koreans have been quite upset also at some of the military exercises offshore. What's the extent of those exercises?
Well, they're pretty considerable. The United States has made a large show, as you know, offshore here, and we don't know quite what the presence may be on the ground in terms of the United States military presence, apart from the 41,000 troops that are always on duty here. They wanted to make it clear to North Korea, especially, and to any outside terrorist, that they're fooling around not with just the Korean police, but with the might of the United States military. So they wanted to make their presence known and show it here.
Okay, Tom, thanks very much. We'll be coming back to you in just a little bit.